Hello and welcome to the Q&A for the Gross and Challenge Shorts program. We're very lucky to have a lot of our filmmakers here with us today so we can do this Q&A. I'm going to ask each one to say your name and tell us what the film you worked on. And let's see, go ahead and start. Let's see. Benjamin, you want to start?
Sure, I'm Ben Morgan. This is my wife, Jocelyn Verado. We co-wrote Hold On to the Moving Sky together. Jocelyn starred in it and I directed it.
Awesome.
Hey, Ben. Good to see you here.
Good to see you.
Long time.
Very long time.
Well, Ezra, you want to go?
Sure. My name is Ezra J. Stanley. I am starring in the movie Junior, written and directed by Genova Carlisle. Also starring Batille. I thought Batille was in here somewhere.
Yes, there she is.
Okay, there she is. And yeah, we shot it last year and it's out this year. Lots of film festivals.
Awesome. Awesome.
So my name's Maria and I have Josh with me. So I directed Kim and Josh was the executive producer on the film.
Awesome. And then I do believe Zachary just joined us. Hi, Zachary.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, can you just tell us who you are and what your film is?
Yeah, my name's Zach, and I was one of the 3 directors on Birth of a Poet, which was actually originally started as a larger collaboration with 10 directors, wow. And turned out to be a mess.
They always are. I can just tell you this.
But I ended up taking three of the shorts and kind of weaving them together to create the short film that we submitted.
Oh, fantastic. That leads me kind of to my first question, which is, I like to ask each of you, what made you do this story? What brought you to this story? And yeah, and how you became involved with it and chose to make this film. I don't know if Zachary, you want to start?
Sure, I'll go first.
You were kind of telling us then.
This actually was, it's a funny story, but basically I was at NYU and James Franco was a couple years ahead of me, and he graduated and he came back to teach a class on adapting poetry. And he invited me to be in the class. And we took Stephen Dobbins' poetry. We were 10 directors, and we each picked 2 poems, and we wrote and then shot them. And this was interesting to me, coming from a narrative background. I've always been really interested in like kind of abstract or poetic moments within narrative film, and I thought this would be a great way to explore it. And then ironically, we kind of had so many different stories. And one of my jobs was to take all of them and make them into like a feature script that would ideally have made sense. And I think what I wanted to learn in that class, I actually ended up learning a couple years after. And now I would love to go back and do more films based on poetry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Were you want to tell us what your experience was and what brought you to make your film?
Yeah, for sure. So with Kim, it's a short documentary, and Kim, my relationship with her is she was actually my dance teacher 10 years prior. And then I didn't see her. I graduated, went to college, moved away. And in that time period, she started her own contemporary ballet company. And in the spring, probably 2 months before the idea really came to me, I saw one of her performances and it brought me to tears. And I just knew that something big must have happened in her life since I've last known her. So we met for coffee and she kind of gave me the full rundown of a domestic abusive relationship that she was in. And I just knew that there was something there, and I wanted to jump on board and try to make something for her. And Josh, actually the executive producer, he comes from an entirely different background. He's in San Francisco, I'm in Philadelphia. But we kind of met in the middle, and he kind of came in on the business side and the sales side, and it was a great collaboration to kind of see it all come through.
Ben, you want to?
Sure. Hold On to the Moving Sky was based on my wife, Jocelyn's.
Do you know my name?
Yes. She is based on her experience with an unplanned pregnancy with let's just say an abusive partner. Maybe calling him a partner is a stretch. But so we have been married for 2 years now, and we wanted to collaborate on a project together, and we thought we'd delve into this story about her experience with that, finding out she's pregnant, and then making a decision to leave that person and get out of the relationship. And it ended up evolving into a silent movie because there's one moment when she decides to leave, when she wants him to at least fight for her, even though she knew she wanted to leave, and he just didn't give a shit and just didn't say anything. And so when we were writing that scene, we realized the power of apathy and the power of silence for good or evil, the power of love or the power of apathy. And so when we realized that scene would, the worst thing that he could do would be to say nothing, we realized that there really wasn't need for dialogue anywhere in the film. And so we really wanted to explore silence. So it's an experimental film because it's a silent movie, there's ambient noise and such, but it's also experimental because Jocelyn and I wanted to see if we could work together. So we were toying with that as well. So that's how the project came to fruition.
Yes, very poetic as well. Do our actors from Junior want to talk about that film?
Tia, why don't you go?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here today. I came across the film because of this amazing director, Genova Carlisle, and a friend of mine who's also has been in my life for a really long time, Alan Ling, who's the executive producer for Junior. And I fell in love with the story because of, the way it depicts two parents who were young, and we have our 4-year-old son who makes this decision one time to pick up a Barbie doll. And that kind of makes us sort of get into this feeling like is he, gender. So it tests on the gender, which is something that I'm very open with that. I'm trying to speak with my husband, Brandon, who's played by Ezra, to have an open mind, because I've had friends who are gay and they have had my back since I was a little girl. I remember when I was a flight attendant for Emirates, and the first year when I started, I got bullied because I didn't know how to go about, the business and how to do certain things. And I remember this one guy he was gay, and he's the one who had my back, and he was the one who was telling me that, when you were new, you didn't know what to do, and you also had to learn. So he had my back, and they're the most beautiful people with the most beautiful hearts I've ever experienced in my life. And going back to parenting, it doesn't matter. I feel like how I experienced it, it doesn't matter if that's what he chooses. At the end of the day, I'm just going to shower him with love and protect him throughout life and help him, and sort of I want him to be strong so that he can live his life free and not have to worry about what people have to say, about his life. I want him to enjoy who he is. And it doesn't really matter if he chooses to be or not to be. I just want to be there as his parent to support him. So that film it touched me. So, yeah.
Ezra, you want to talk about you got to play the bad guy.
Yeah. I think when I read the script, well, you know, how I got to the project, I think the casting director, Carolyn Claus, she was looking around. I think she found me working with kids as a teacher. I think I was somewhere online, some old website that I was like a camera and coach for children. It was called Kids on Camera, and it was, you know, it was like Dakota Fanning School basically. And so she found me through that, Googling, I guess, however casting magic works. She eventually got in contact with one of my agents, and they said they would love to have me read for it. And I looked at the script, which is great to actually get the full script, because I don't get that a lot these days. Because I think people want to protect, especially in the SF Bay area, there's a lot of, like, you know, NDAs and stuff like that with tech and everything. So when I got the script, I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is heavy. This is real. This is not another kind of a cheesy or real quick drama piece. And something pulled my attention to it that I didn't even know yet. There was other things that I was working out with, sort of coming out of religion and coming out of religion, coming out of my past, and then also being a person of color. I've got multiple Black races in me, and then I've been trying to balance that with being an American, but also being a Belizean, having been born in San Francisco, and then at the same time lived a little bit all the time, once in a while in Belize, and trying to find my identity. And then Belize has a lot of, you know, used to be very homophobic. It still kind of is, a lot of developing nations are. And I felt a lot of that growing up from my father's perspective, my Jehovah's Witness background perspective. There was a lot of that stuff that I kind of felt like, you know, I would love to speak as an avatar to this. And then also the identification of, you know, it was shot in Oakland, mostly it's all East Bay. And then sort of the idea of the angry Black man and what that means, and how is that a title, and how we have that in our mind, and the confusion of what that looks like, and why is that a thing, and where does that anger come from, and where does ignorance, how is it born, and how can one evolve out of it? And I felt that this was important for me as giving my art to something that will hopefully benefit evolutionary conversations. And that's, I felt like I was giving myself to this, and that's what brought me in. But they auditioned a lot of folks, and I was literally the last guy. In fact, they didn't even think in the audition room that they thought I was working for another company. I was just sitting there. And they're like, they kept coming out. I was like, hey, you guys wanna, and they're like, oh, you're here for the thing. I was like, yeah. I must have been there for quite some, like a couple hours or something. And yeah. I kind of went in, and I felt very at home as soon as I walked in the room. The casting, the producers, Alan Ling, Genova Carlisle, all these wonderful folks were just giving me this energy. Batil was there. I imagine she had been doing all of these auditions with his previous leads, and it just felt good to get out and to find some identification for this role. So I'm very happy that I did it, you know.
I'm glad that he was the person that we chose, because we did this chemistry read and we went through a lot of people, and he came in ready. Like, when I say he came in ready, he came in ready. Like, I was like, whoa, where did this guy come from? Because like in the back of my head, the casting associate came in and said there's one guy waiting outside, so he wasn't even in the list. And in the back of my head, I was like, maybe he might be the guy. I don't know. Something just happened, and then it happened.
Yeah. It's a story. It's unforgettable. It's unforgettable what happened. But
it was good. Yeah, good. I'm grateful for you, Ezra. Thank you.
Well, the boy too was fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
really fabulous. I don't know what his story was.
Carter Young. He does some pro work, commercial work. I think he's done a couple Disney stuff. He's he's back and forth as a young guy, rehearsing the lines with his mom. And I think we eventually, if you've seen the film, I'm kind of have that I have an extremely intense character, and that's a lot for a child to see and to make the difference between like Ezra and the character.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sort of like, what's up, man? It's all good, and then, and then when they call action, the guy's like, holy crap. And even for myself, I was like, where is this being coming from? And, there are times if you see the film that, there's a hug in the film there. That was, Genova just lets the camera roll. As soon as the last words are done, the actor feels like, okay, dude, where are you going to call cut? And I've been trained enough to, any pro, to not jump out and be like, okay, when's the scene done? It just kept going. And I guess whatever happened, I kind of black out, if you will, when I act. So I think I just was like, come here, dude, and he was reluctant to come near me. He was reluctant to even hug me. And I don't know if it was me or the character, but he was stone cold afraid. And then it worked actually, because I had to pull him in, and there's that hard jump cut in the film where I'm like, I grab him really tight, that's fun stuff. It's fun film stuff.
Yeah, he came in ready. He was very confident. Like when he said his lines, you could feel it, like it touched your heart when he said it. So that's why I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah. I think this is our young junior.
Well, I'm interested in asking all of you, in the making of your film, whether it was production, which I know is always crazy, or post-production, if there was something that surprised you or was something that you didn't expect that you had to overcome, or that was wonderful, some memory from the production of your films. If someone wants to, Joshua.
Yeah, I in all of our films, there are very real moments when, let's call it very difficult or challenging information is conveyed to the viewer. I think about the scene in Junior's film when you're in the principal's office, right? And the question comes up of like, how long do you let the audience sit with this information? And the amount of times that Maria, her brother Joseph, and I, after we told the audience that she had been raped, and the respect that you have to give to her and to your audience of, is it 3 seconds? Is it 2 seconds? Is it 2.5 seconds? Like, when does the music come in? When does the music come out? And being newer to this industry, the amount of responsibility you feel both to your subject and to the audience was something, a weight that I wasn't previously familiar with. And it was days that Maria, Joseph, and I spent on like 3 seconds of editing and how important that was to us. So that, being new to the industry, that was that was surprising to me. I didn't expect to spend that much time on a very, very, very short, but very, very important piece of editing. So that was really, really surprising to me.
Yeah, I think kind of our whole process from the end of production to the beginning of post-production. So being in Philadelphia, our mandatory quarantine started the very last day of our production. So we shot right up until it was no longer allowed. And then we had an editor hired on board and we were all ready to start, but it was obviously going to have to be remote. And after a couple of weeks of remote editing, we realized it just wasn't going to be possible. So I have editing experience, but I kind of had to like go back to my rusty old toolkit and try to remake the story. So I ended up editing the film myself. And I think that was a very challenging moment, but also a great learning experience for Josh and my brother Joe, who was the other producer, for us to really kind of take a moment and feel our own impact on the story and the audience. And like Josh was saying, the responsibility you have, especially with documentary when someone is sharing so much of their personal life and something that can be very triggering for a lot of audience members. It's a very fine line that you have to walk, and I think the responsibility weighs very heavy on us as filmmakers, but it's a responsibility that I take in pride, and that I want to serve the story well and to continue to tell stories like this.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to share a moment too.
Yep.
So we actually, one of the first poem that I shot didn't make it into the movie. And because we were shooting with Chloe Sevigny and Logan Marshall Green, I didn't have a single minute with them before we got on set. So I
Wow.
literally showed up on set and it was like, okay, go. And the first poem was like a disaster. And I was going to shoot with them again the next day. And I heard Chloe Sevigny reading the script, and she was like mocking the dialogue. And I just thought, this is gonna be even worse than tomorrow. And I went home and I was really just like, wow, what a bitch. And then about, I don't know, midnight, 1 a.m, I thought maybe she's right. Like maybe we can write this better. So I pulled out my computer and I started working all night. And I showed up in the morning and I went into their trailer, and the three of us sat down, and I just said, we're not going to shoot until we're all happy with what we have. And of course, like the AD was like going crazy, and we're like, got no time. I'd given half of my day to shoot to another friend who hadn't finished her previous work. And we just sat there for an hour, and the three of us rewrote it together. And then we finally had something that we were all happy with. And Logan said, I can give you half of those lines without saying a word. And I was like, awesome. And then we went on and blocked it and shot it. And it went pretty smooth. But that was definitely a good learning experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things, I mean, obviously, bringing in the actors and respecting them and because they're oftentimes closer to their characters than a director who's working with multiple characters in their mind. But oftentimes to tell this story, we need lines of dialogue just to get us through the story in the script. And a lot of those lines aren't actually needed or can be done non-verbally. And I think something I learned was like, once we're on set, maybe we do one take with all the dialogue and then we think, what can we subtract? And that was actually beautifully done in Ben, in your film, where you cut all the dialogue out. And it was like, didn't affect the story at all. If anything, it made it stronger. Yeah.
Ben, you guys want to tell us about your journey?
Yeah. Well, if the question was a surprise, thanks for the kind words, Zach. Appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
We loved your film too. Surprising moments. I love shooting in live locations, as Ezra can attest. Ezra was in a feature that I shot in Mission in San Francisco.
That was crazy. I was just telling my girlfriend about that. Train a tunnel. Train
Oh.
at night.
Oh.
No, maybe we don't talk about. It was about 2 graffiti writers in the Mission in San Francisco. We shot some live location. But in Hold On to the Moving Sky, we shot, she leaves her boyfriend and she's pregnant and she's showing. And we wanted to show her wrestling with this decision. And so we shot, we timed it so there was a car show in downtown Boise where we shot it. And we knew, car shows are typically kind of testosterone-filled events. And we wanted to see what would happen if there was a woman crying on the ground, sitting on a suitcase and she was pregnant. And we assumed people would just walk by. I mean, I consider myself a compassionate person. I don't know if I would want to get involved either. You don't know what you're getting into. And so we just kind of hid the camera, it wasn't a hidden camera, and just let things happen. And this woman came up to Jocelyn. Do you want to tell her what happened?
Yeah, she just was so compassionate. It makes me want to cry every time I talk about it. She just came up to me and gave me the biggest, warmest hug and just held me and said, "Girl, I've been there. I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you if you need. I know you don't know me, but I'll give you my email. We can go out to coffee. I I just want you to know you're not alone. And she just held me and just, and I just continued to cry and said thank you. And she just kept reassuring me, it's going to be okay. And I just had to kind of, stay in character and encourage her to move on. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And eventually she walked away, but it was really powerful because so many people were walking by, and it was really neat to see that empathy and compassion and just a stranger.
Yeah, I was so touched by it. I was getting teared up because I was watching, down the street, watching it happen, and it was a very powerful moment. And then of course I ran after her and got her to sign a release. But
I also had a police officer come
yeah,
at one point.
I did not get him to sign a release. I think, but, he was just trying to.
He was trying to get me off the street.
Yeah, he was trying to clean up the
Public
mess.
servant.
Doing his job.
Yeah, he
he got drama downtown
Yeah.
and took care of it. But yeah, that was a really a surprising moment for us.
Yeah. So that was really touching.
It really was, and it made intensely touching. And can you talk more about because by not having dialogue, it became so poetic, and just, of course, the acting and just, brought the story through, but your decision, a little more about your decision to do that, because I think it was really wonderful.
Yeah, well, we wrote it. We wrote
the power out.
Yeah, we wrote the story together, and Jocelyn's background is in theater, and so I guess the third part of the experiment was for her to get some screen.
Yeah, it was my
experience.
first time on film,
And
so I hadn't tried
yeah.
film.
And I
Good
figured,
job.
I'd seen her on stage. She's made me laugh. She's made me cry. She's, so I knew she was ready for what, essentially like a master's level experiment, which was to do something with no dialogue, which, working with untrained actors as well was a challenge. But, there's the scene where she's in a cafe and she's on the phone. This is a great example of not having film experience. So, again, when we were writing that scene together, I realized, when you see someone and you're in a restaurant and you see them across, you don't need to hear what they're saying. You can tell if a couple's in an intense argument, or, you kind of can gather what's going on. So we knew with some context in the story, especially, that we didn't need to hear the phone call. And in fact, if you did hear the phone call, it would feel heavy-handed and overtly dramatic. And so I loved the thought of cars going by, and you have to infer what's going on. So I tried to walk Jocelyn through as much of the production process as I could, but there were some things that I just overlooked and maybe assumed. And so we were shooting the wide from across the street on a long lens, and we tell Jocelyn action, and the DP is actually, he readjusts the tripod, and I remember listening to the dailies, and he adjusts the tripod, and he's go, oh shit, like she's already bawling. And
I didn't realize they were so far away, so I just gave it all. I didn't know there was like an eventual close-up.
yeah, so we shoot the wide for a little while, and then we cut, and I go, okay, we're gonna move in for close-ups now. And she's like, what?
Oh, there's another?
There's more.
The close-up?
Yeah, and then she just kept pouring it out. So, I mean, really, the wide is where she really gave it her all, but had something left when we moved in for the close-ups.
Yeah, it was an adjustment to the screening thing, I'm used to doing it once, and that's it, not multiple. But, yeah. So it was a learning experience.
Yeah, it's great. You had a wet reservoir there.
One thing I would like to ask folks too is, because this is a shorts film festival and shorts are wonderful and we love shorts, why shorts? What brought you to make a short film in the short form, or what do you love about it or hate about it? Or, some people are making a short and they hope to make a feature, but it is such a wonderful form of filmmaking. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on shorts. Does anyone want to?
Well, I guess, sorry, I accidentally unmuted it. Yeah.
We'll go again.
well, right along the lines of wanting to test out our ability to work together. Ben had done features, and since I had never done anything on film, we just wanted a little taster of what the project would look like if we were collaborating. And so that was our reason for doing short.
It was more just about attainability than it was
attainability.
A preference for specific medium. But yeah, so our answer is pretty quick. We just wanted to do something we could shoot in a weekend.
Yeah.
And Maria, your film is part of a series, is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. So that's kind of why we went with the short format. The exact ideal platform of this and distribution idea, that is still kind of going to be something that we're imagining and working towards. But we want to do a short film series highlighting artists of different backgrounds and of other places across the US, and looking for people that have very much like Kim show a great deal of resilience, but also using that struggle to create their art in a deeper way. So yeah, Kim was the first one going through a female choreographer and struggling with domestic abuse. And the next film in our series, we're currently working with a young queer R&B artist in Philadelphia. So that's going to kind of be our track of going through different cities and trying to find different artists to kind of highlight. But I think definitely our goal right now is to kind of keep in that short format. And again, what that platform will be, we're gonna figure that out down the road, but we're just gonna keep making films for now.
Anyone else?
I'll go. I went to film school, started directing, did commercials and all that kind of stuff, been behind the camera a lot. And I would tell myself as I got to my late 20s, I'm like, I'm done with shorts, I needed to spend time and make a feature and all that. And because I think at the time, whether I was making specs or whatnot, I was putting a lot of my own money in it and, blood, sweat and tears in it. There's no return. As we know, the short market is so up and down and depends on what the zeitgeist is in the form of streaming or media or DVD. It always changes. And so I'm old enough to remember the DVD reels and stuff. And I told myself no more shorts as a filmmaker, but over the years, I've started to make short video art stuff and start working with other artists. And then as an actor, there's usually no money in it as a union actor. There's usually not, can't really make a living. So when this came along, they were like, this is a serious, not only was the script serious, but it was also like, pay job, And I noticed it was union and they had their act together and there was just all these things that lined up and I was like, this is a piece of art. The way this ends, the filmmaker, I can tell from his previous work, I was like, we have something here, and I want to make art with people. That's what it felt good, like that feeling of collaboration, especially with film. There's especially like on a short film, there's a higher chance of people working on that who are other filmmakers. So the crew will be filmmakers themselves. The gaffer, the grip, everybody there has been behind the camera at some point. And they're all making the story live time. So everyone's invested, everyone has the scripts, and there's so much passion and love that I can feel, that I was hoping there was gonna be that, and there was that. And I made some really good friends, and I think the other thing is I swear off theater. I haven't done theater since I was like a kid, because of the energy and the time it takes. I don't feel the gratification that I get, and I like the nuances of the eyes and all that screen stuff. And the short film for me as a body performer is I can hone it. I can hone the energy and sort of keep the story like precise with my body energy, and just I'm in and I'm out basically as an employee. I'm in and I'm out. And the challenge was, like television or being a day job director, is trying to suddenly be this character all of a sudden. And for the week or 3 or 4 days that we were doing this, to suddenly have to build up a backstory and learn a language, because I had to learn sort of the Oakland sound, I had the African American male sound. I had to really hear a lot of that language, and so the in and out was there, but at the same time, the energy that I put into, I really liked that work, the artisan work of the shorts. Going, we got some artists, like that's a good feeling, and I'm sure all of you guys feel that, like the difference between working on a short calorically and the difference between working on a feature, and it's not that anyone's better than the other one. It's just where one is with themselves as the artist, as that canvas is on that day or that month or year, So go shorts.
Go shorts. It's a creative freedom.
Yeah. And there's usually a guerrilla form to it, GEU, a guerrilla form to it. Ben knows all about this. Is that there's probably less management, less production, less studios looking at everything you're doing, and you can't do that, and union's not there all the time. Like, you can't, put all kinds of squibs on this guy, like whatever. There's more of a freedom to play and say, okay, well, we missed that shot. We're gonna turn it around and shoot it on the street, or do this, and that's cool. Like, that's lifetime painting. That's real cinema to me,
Absolutely. Zachary, can you give us any idea of your experience? Was this project also part of school, part of the university, or?
It was. It's actually funny because our film was actually a feature and a short, like all at the same time.
A bunch of shorts making a feature.
Yeah, and we, like you said, like everybody's, when I wasn't shooting mine, I'm gripping or gaffing or shooting somebody else's. So we're really doing all of it. For me, I think, and it wasn't going to be a short, it was just a feature. We went to one festival and then didn't really go anywhere. And I was actually at a sweat lodge in Mexico a couple of years ago. And I was in there with a buddy of mine who has muscular dystrophy, who's, we had to like kind of squeeze him in, and we kind of got all ready. And there was a woman on the other side, and she said, the person she was with said, she's a little claustrophobic. I think she needs to leave. And the woman who was leading it said, why don't you just come over closer a little bit to the window where you could get out if you need to. And she sat with my buddy Victor, and you got to kind of hold his head up a little bit when he's sitting in there. And by kind of taking care of him, she was able to get over her own fears. And it's dark in there, you can't really see anybody. And towards the end of it, when her friend said something to her again, and he said, Chloe, and I kind of was looking at her silhouette and thinking, is that? And I couldn't tell. And everybody got out when it was done. And then we went into the dressing rooms, and I asked the guy, I said, is your friend Chloe Sevigny? And he said, yeah. So I went out and found her afterwards and talked to her. And I said, hey, we made a movie a couple years ago. And she was like, oh, what was it? Whatever. And then she was like, whatever happened to that? And I was like, it went to one festival and that was it. And shortly after that, I kind of got the idea that maybe I could do something more with this. And it's interesting for me when I think about shorts, it's really, you're looking at like a moment of change, whether it's with one person or a relationship or something, which it was one of the reasons I love shorts, because it's like a short story. You're just going for the heart of the meat. And then with the feature, you get to tell a bigger story, and you have lots of moments of change. And the only two people that really collaborated on the feature were me and my buddy Pedro, where I actually, in the fight that happens between the husband and wife, I used an incident in his poem, which was quitting his job, to instigate that fight. And we played it so that he would be wearing the same clothes from one scene to the next. But we were the only two that actually thought about combining our stories and using, the same the same storyline. So then I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe I could use Pedro's. And then, and funny enough, I thought everybody shot a different style, which is one of the reasons the film didn't work. But in this one, so like when I was originally working with the editor cutting it, I left James's piece out because it was so different in style from everything else. And I remember one time I went to the hotel and I was showing him a cut of the film, and we finished watching it. He goes, "Where's my piece?" And I go, "I didn't make it in." And then ironically, when we were cutting this short, it was like we had these two narrative styles, and to be able to show his transition from a photojournalist to a poet, we needed that change and that shift in style. And if you saw the film, or if you watch it, you'll see that there's a whole segment of it, which was the part that James shot, which is much more poetic. It's using black and white footage, it's color, it's different sound effects, it's old movies in Hollywood. And it worked really well to show that visual shift that was paralleling or mirroring his internal shift. And funny enough, but through doing that, the short film version of it, I was able to see that us as film students were really stuck on taking these poems and turning them into narrative cinema, which was like defeating the whole purpose of the class. But so that's a long story, but yeah, I love the short form.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Well, I know our Zoom window is going to end. So before that ends, I'd love to hear from everyone what they might be working on now, or what they've got planned for the future, or plans for this current film, or just what you got going on in these COVID times. But so.
Well, I just wanted to say that initially when I started the short, I didn't know where it was going to go, because I'm still new in the acting industry, and I'm just grateful that I was able to be given a chance, because I come from working background extra, and going from someone giving me that opportunity and saying that, here, I'm going to give you a lead role with speaking lines, and the story was great, and I was able to work with amazing people. The cast was amazing. Everyone was amazing. That to me made me feel like, okay, I got to do shorts. Now I can move on to the next step, whatever that next step is. But right now I've just been focusing on taking acting classes and, speaking with other casting directors. There's a lot of like virtual monologues that's going on Instagram. And just listening to other artists and other people in the industry, in the business, and learning, because I think you can really learn a lot. There's so much to learn in this industry, and yeah, that's what I've been doing. So
Awesome. You go down the line, Joshua.
So as Maria mentioned before, it's so investing and then producing, helping Maria to produce the second episode of Craft, which we're focusing on for Philadelphia. And then we've started sourcing for episodes 3, 4, and 5 as well. So it's really identifying that talent that is kind of undiscovered and has a very inspiring story, similar to what Maria's been able to, or what we've been able to do with Kim, between Maria, Joe, and I.
Yeah, I think our main goal is to keep the series going and keep finding different artists across the U.S. But kind of on my own personal journey, I worked in camera for my entire career. I was a camera operator and a DP. So this was actually my first time directing anything. And I kind of fell in love with it. And I think on my personal road, I'm going to continue just rolling with directing. Obviously, I still work in camera to make money. But I think directing is just kind of like spoken to me a lot. And weird note, Zach, actually, Pedro was my teacher at Studio 4 up in New York, him and Bruce. So I know Pedro pretty well. He's a great guy. Well, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and keep making more short films.
Awesome.
I'm happy to go next. That's very cool. I think there's a lot of like little similarities. Like I was a SF Filmhouse resident with Jehovah in 2018. So I'm sure there's like
Small world there.
It's a very small world. Yeah.
You apparently already met me. My manager was there at the party, I think, with you guys there. And they're like, yeah, we met you. I was like, must have been on the sauce. I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, great shouts out to Oakland. I love the way that you portrayed it. I'm from Oakland and grew up here. So I really appreciate it, and got all the, the little sound effect, from the BART train passing just a few shots before you see the BART train. Like,
I like that what they did.
Is really nice. Yeah.
That was a fluke, I think, but they did it right.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm working right now on finishing up a feature documentary on Hurricanes Maria and Irma that went through the Virgin Islands 2 years ago, and now almost 3 years ago. And that's just been a labor of love. Went down there for like 2 months, just a couple days after it hit. And we're just, the no budget, just working through, taking our time, finishing it.
We also do SF Doc Fest, FYI. Ezra, you want to tell us what you're up to these days?
Sure. I'm still auditioning, COVID style. So everything, as you know, is every actor is now doing lighting and everything like that, background. That was a thing that was like, oh no, we're online, online things for the past many years. It was like, okay, we'll finally have to do an online audition, but now, it's standard, and I think it might stay that way. But I've been still auditioning. I have one audition to do tonight for a CW show that I can't talk about just yet, but so another interesting character I got to do. So I'm spending my days keeping my mind focused in that sense, by auditioning, feeling like I've got stuff to do. I just finished up like running the social media, my own social blah blah blah, for this Michelob campaign that I did for the NBA, and that was fun. And again, it was like shooting COVID style with everyone masked up. I never saw the director's face. Maybe I saw it for like 5 minutes. That was a very interesting experience.
Wow.
To be directed and work with other screen artists and never seeing anybody, it's a bizarre world right now for an actor, for screen artists, I think, to work together with social distancing on the set. But, I have to talk with my partner and say, am I okay? Are we okay with me flying? Are you okay with me working over here and there? So right now I'm just auditioning. I'm writing my own features that I've been working on for a while, applying for grants with, San Francisco Film Society, things like that. And I also represent a couple of painters from my hometown in Belize as an art dealer, art agent, put it that way. And I'm just trying to get their work back into the American eye. And this is one of the top painters of my country, and help create the sound for our independent country of Belize. And so a lot of my time is spent sort of making sure that that my artists are being taken care of. So I'm trying to go down that route and pivoting that way during COVID.
Benjamin, you guys want to?
Yeah, so John and I had planned to make another short together. We were going to shoot it at a music festival. She was playing a musician, and that was March, so that didn't happen. So we've been using this time to develop material, and I've just finished a TV pilot script, and we're going to shop it around and possibly break the pilot into 3 webisodes and shoot it ourselves. I'm not going to spend, frankly, a ton of time shopping it, but Jocelyn has a lead role in that. So, and just finished a feature script as well. So we're primarily utilizing this time to develop material, and hopefully we'll be ready to go. And the pilot, if we end up shooting it ourselves, is something I think we could even do in the COVID environment. So we'll be ready to go early next year either way.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you all for sharing your films with us and joining us for this Q&A. This has been fantastic. You've all been wonderful. And I have to remind the audience, because there will be an audience, to vote, because there's awards for films. So be sure to vote. And thank you guys so much. This
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Love all the local filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to meet
Yeah.
nice to meet everyone on here.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet
You as well.
you. Good to see you, Ezra.
Oh yeah, good seeing everybody. Yeah.